There is a feeling that arises only in the desert, in the vast, desolate lands, spaces that are arid and decorated by saguaros, shrubs, and creosote. The mountains sprawl over the blurred horizon line, painted by light and composed of blues and reds, a product of the earth whose evolution has been hidden away from the eyes of human observers. Here I feel the presence of something greater than me, a feeling that truth lingers within mountains, among the stars, and within the soft sounds of desert life. In the grand scheme of human civilization, we believe that we are the center of it all, where everything orbits around the inner universe that we call our cities. Yet within the confinements of a city that houses 1.6 million people, we wonder what lies beyond the system in which we have created. When I find myself standing on the gridline boundary between land and city, human developments turn into an alien creation, dispersed in a land starkly different from its rigid design. There is a complexity when one is faced with urban desert landscapes that aren't made for hosting humans, but to sustain the life that has evolved and learned to be resilient when challenged with the harshness of the desert climate. But with rising heat waves due to climate change and the growth of the city, we are forced to question our relationship with the natural world. Yet despite these changes, the scorching heat, the desolate nature of desertscapes, and the land's refusal to be inhabited, we still find ways to connect with a land that has hosted life for millions and billions of years.
Phoenix is organized into square grids that encapsulate America's growing industrialization and its desire for expansion. Against the miles of houses, factories, and highways lies a vast frontier land, representing the space between nature and human habitation. The Western vision was to transform the frontier of undeveloped land into the source of American energy, individualism, and political democracy. However, we can see that there is a more complex relationship between these frontier lands and the urban development of the city's metropolitan core. Throughout time, Phoenix's rapid industrialization and development has made the city subject to the natural pressures on which it laid its foundation on. Despite being one of the fastest growing cities in America, Phoenix is becoming increasingly more unlivable due to extreme heat of up to 43 degrees Celsius, if not higher, or 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Last summer, there was 113 consecutive days of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37 degrees Celsius. The government has done little to mitigate these climate change effects, continuing to expand on large-scale building projects despite limited resources. However, native reservations and protected wilderness areas represent a possible kinship between the Sonoran Desert and the surrounding environment. These areas represent a possible reconciliation between city and nature, which we are seeing right now.
The Sonoran Desert encompasses the entire southern part of Arizona and the city of Phoenix. The Sonoran Desert is a habitat of extremes, with trees with skeletal leaves and cacti blossoming with syrupy purple fruits. The rare rain brings the ancient desert flora back to life, while conceiving new grasses, thirsting for moisture in these harsh conditions. The indigenous people of the Sonoran Desert have lived off of this land for centuries, but until recently, the demographic implosion of the city has created a communication gap between the people and their environment. One may wonder whether it is not too late to breathe new life into the idea of the city and allow for reciprocal interactions with nature outside the framework of the traditional urban environment as we know it today.
The fruits of the saguaro cactus are very edible. They are juicy, they're sweet, they're loaded with vitamin C and potassium, and this is why the indigenous people collected them by using tools that are made from the skeleton. Very long rods. They would knock them down, collect them, made jams out of them, and ate them in the wintertime when there is nothing else to eat. What else they ate is also the piña of the agave plant. There are more than 250 kinds of agave. It is a staple food and source of all kinds of useful things for the indigenous people. At the base of the plant, we have a container that is called piña. This piña is full of sugar. When they roast it, it always has to be roasted because it's sweeter and better when it's roasted. When you roast it and cut it, and the taste of it is like a sweet potato, actually sweeter than sweet potato. So it was a very basic food of the indigenous people.
My name is Daniel Kahona, and I'm from the Hopi tribe of northern Arizona. Phoenix is growing rapidly, but we have borderlines, we have boundaries that weren't just placed by us, it was also placed by the U.S. government. And when they get to that boundary line, they want to go over it and claim it as their own. They don't see that this is the boundary line, this is our land. You see a lot of these communities building houses around here, and they're either javelina, coyote, or bobcats running around in their backyard. They got to realize that before you guys built your houses there and everything, this was their land. This was where they hunted at. We need those sites to be how they are and not dug up or not disturbed or anything like that. You know, we didn't just wake up one day and turn around and say, oh, that's sacred. That's been sacred long before we were even here. Everything has a spirit, has a purpose. The plants around you, like cactus and everything, or tumbleweeds, those have a purpose to be here, and those are living things. You got to realize that everything around you in this world is a living thing. Things are changing, plants are dying, there's more sickness, there's more things out there that are happening. And that's something that a lot of people in the U.S. government don't see it like that. They're not connected. And to this day, we're still fighting for sacred sites, things we believe in.
Shaped by the heat, the city of Phoenix is surrounded by cacti, succulents, and desert flora scattered throughout and spewed upon the sandy rocks. In this unique and harsh environment, giants from deep below the earth rise up. Heaps of rock and dust and petrified mud interspersed with the flat and bare desert scape. Pushed up from deep below the earth's surface layers, these giants lie there, immobile by our standards, yet slowly shifting, eroding, and changing over millions and billions of years. Here in the desert, we can see what lies beneath. We can see the structure of our planet on its most superficial layer. These landscapes have been the central setting for the entirety of my life thus far, and the mountains within them have always caught my attention. However, one formation has been particularly prominent in my life. This mountain is known as Camelback Mountain. Exploring areas on Camelback Mountain has been an enjoyable way to spend my days, but there is one place in particular that I had been eyeing for quite some time. A small canyon raised above the beginning of the main trail and slightly below the summit of the Camel's Head Formation. A footpath guides me until I reach the base of the canyon, densely packed with palo verde trees, an assortment of shrubberies, and the occasional young saguaro cactus. I push my way past branches and through the leaves as I maneuver my way to the base of the canyon. After that, I reach a small gully and begin to climb up. I climb left past some old rusty bolts used to protect this route and continue scrambling up the gully until I reach the canyon. As I move down the canyon, trees and shrubberies seem to disperse, and the yellowish grass surrounds my feet. Now unobstructed by trees, I can begin to see what lies out the other end of the canyon, the city below. It's really quite something to look at such a city of magnitude. Above me, the sky is a calming blue that stretches endlessly. The sun, nearly directly overhead, beams down on me and I feel the heat. To me, the desert rests its most authentic form only on the brightest and hottest of days. The warm beams of the sun pounding down and the heat radiating from the surrounding rocks are at the core of the desert's character. I'm still not quite sure how to describe the feeling of looking out of August Canyon onto the city of Phoenix. It's a rather bizarre juxtaposition. This isolated canyon plopped right above the middle of one of the largest cities in the United States. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. One world sprawls endlessly, a perfect grid of sun-baked streets stretching towards the horizon. It hums with the constant murmur of traffic on wide, cracked boulevards. The other is quiet, still, and almost stubborn in its refusal to be anything but what it is. A place carved not by human ambition, but by the rain and the wind. And yet, they exist right next to each other, separated in a way that feels both accidental and inevitable. I wonder if anyone down there ever looks up and sees this place, if they even know it's here. One world grows, consumes, and rebuilds endlessly. The other endures untouched, waiting. But still, I sit here looking down, feeling like I've stepped between two things that aren't supposed to touch, yet still two things that struggle to coexist. I wonder if we belong to one more than the other. Perhaps we must choose.